All right, I think I'm going to go ahead and get started. It is 7:04. And I'd call the October 26th, 2022 meeting of the Board of Library Trustees to order. Pursuant to Chapter 107 of the Acts of 2022, this meeting will be conducted via remote means. Members of the public who wish to access the meeting may do so ahead of time by accessing the Zoom link. No in-person attendance of the members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so for reasons of economic hardship, despite best efforts, we will post the Westborough Public Library's website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of the proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. This meeting is being recorded. All right, thank you everyone for taking some time out to be here tonight. First up on our agenda is public forum, and we have a few members of the public here with us tonight. Is anyone want to speak at this time, or are we just here to listen? Which either way is fine.
I'm John Arnold. I'm only here in case there are questions later on in your agenda about the special town meeting process. So
Thank you for joining us, John.
you're welcome.
I'm Julie Eversmell. I don't have anything to share. I'm working with Hope Wall. She's also on this call, and Brittany Johnston on the citizens petition. So we're just still trying to gather as much information as we can.
Thank you so much for joining us and for your efforts. We appreciate it.
Mary,
Sorry.
Mary,
Yes.
point of order. Usually we hear that a signal that it's being recorded. Can you just check to make sure it is?
Yeah.
I see the little recording icon at top left there, so I imagine
Okay.
it is.
Okay,
Yeah.
very good. Thank you.
It did record. Sorry about that. Because I had to log in on my phone. My computer is still updating, but it is recording.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, we'll give Dot a second for her speakers to catch up. Okay, great. So that brings us up to Secretary's report, approval of August minutes. That is the minutes, not August, September minutes. That is the approval of September 28th, 2022 meeting. Does anyone have any corrections, additions, notes to make? I did not, so looks good to me.
I make a motion that we approve the September minutes as written.
I'll second.
Okay, go down. Deborah,
Yes.
Kate,
Yes.
Bill,
Lenane, yes.
Ed,
Baldwin, yes.
Jim,
Holmes, yes.
Karen,
Okay, yes.
Dot,
Yes.
and myself, Johnston, yes. And I don't see Carolyn on here, correct? I don't want to miss anybody. Perfect. Okay, thank you so much for working on that. Next up, treasurer's report. I'll try to pull it up on my screen. Does anybody have any questions about our current month's report?
No questions. Lynn does an excellent job as usual.
Thanks. We're pretty much on target. There's nothing unusual in terms of spending this month.
Yeah, it all looks pretty standard.
Move to accept.
Second.
All right.
Who seconded that? I'm sorry.
Kate.
Kate.
Okay. Deborah,
Yes.
Kate,
Daly, yes.
Bill,
Lenane, yes.
Ed,
Baldwin, yes.
Jim,
Holmes, yes.
Karen,
Okay, yes.
Dot,
Yes.
and myself, Johnston, yes. Thank you. Okay. That brings us up to the Friends update. I don't think we have one of this. How would their last book sale go? Do we know?
I wrote to her a while back, but she just gives general information that she gives to Maureen. So
Okay.
there's another one coming up on the 12th, I think, of November.
Is that one slated to be outdoors? Do you know?
I don't know.
Indoors.
Indoors. Great. All right, absence of that, the next one up is foundation update. I touched base with Maureen Johnson, who wasn't able to be here tonight, but she wanted to have a smaller meeting after this meeting, and we get a sense of the direction that this is going in, to then regroup with the foundation and see what direction they want to take on it. So she didn't really feel like there was anything to contribute at this point. Anything anyone would like me to share when I meet with Maureen?
Just a point that it's been brought up, that it would be good if the citizens petition is approved and we do have a follow-up town meeting. It would be good to have the foundation make a statement that they've been in operation and whatever they can report, without getting into details. Something was said by the co-chair, but from a speaker off, the speaker up back, and people didn't understand it. So something more definitive, if you will, I think would be appreciated by the town.
Sure.
I would also suggest that we emphasize that as of now, we don't have the grant, but we are still going to need to do a lot of work on the library. So they really have every reason to finally ramp up on fundraising. We're going to need that money for things that to dispel some of the expenses that the town will have. There's no reason not to be raising money. Go, go, go.
Will do. It's my understanding that was their intention either way to raise money towards the renovation or rebuild of the library. They think they just wanted to be really careful in their wording of what the funds that they raised went towards. So that's why they wanted to wait to the outcome of town meeting, because they didn't want to be caught in that, like we said, donate money to a new library and now it's not going to be a new library. So I believe that is still, but I will justly convey that message. I think it holds true for sure.
I have a very similar understanding. Thank you.
Great. Okay. So that brings us up to library building project. I have in here a session for answer any questions from the public if there were any. Just for context, there were so many people that had attended the library building committee meeting, and I wasn't sure if that was going to be the same here, and I wanted to make sure there was an appropriate point in our agenda where we were able to answer questions should any come up. So if there are any members of our public here that have questions specifically for the trustees, feel free to shoot them at us. All right. So in seeing none, I'm going to move, but feel free if something else comes up to ask at another time. Move on to library building committee update / plans for moving forward. Ed, there you are. If you want to give us an update on the library building committee status currently, that'd be great.
Sure. So we've met twice and had a number of discussions. I guess the key point for the trustees is that the building committee voted against recommending. Let me take a step back. So there's three things could happen. Two things could happen. We could have another meeting or another town meeting, or we could not. And there's two routes to town meeting. One is for some organization or I suppose person in town to request the selectmen to schedule a meeting. And the other, of course, is for a petition with 200 people to get to 200 people to sign a petition requesting a meeting. So the first we debated that first option, that is whether we, the building committee, thought that we, the library, should ask the trustees to schedule a meeting, and voted against that. I believe the vote was 6-3 against, largely because people felt that the vote had been taken and it should not be up to us to try and get a second vote done. So my understanding is that the petition drive is going forward, and we have every hope that that will succeed.
Ed, can you just clarify, that was a recommendation that the trustees approach?
We voted against.
From the building committee.
Yeah, we voted against. The building committee recommended against, I'm sorry, the building committee voted against recommending the trustees request that the select board schedule a new town meeting.
Okay.
Is that accurate? There's a lot of building committee meetings here, so you can tag me, but
There was a
okay.
motion made for the building committee to recommend to the trustees to recommend to the select board, and that was voted down.
Yes, I was there for that, so I think I understand it. Just wanted to make sure I had that.
It's a lot
Got
of
it.
work.
Yep.
Yeah. So we actually met earlier this afternoon and discussed, went sort of further into the plans. We had general agreement not to think about the rebuild at this point. We want to, that is, you know, not to think about what might happen if we don't renovate, if the town votes against the renovation. We'll figure that out once the town's decision is final one way or the other. And instead, we're going to try and focus on getting this really preparing. We're making the assumption that the petition drive is going to lead to a meeting, and we're getting ready for a presentation at that meeting.
Yeah.
I will say the project team, the different firms we brought on to help with this all seem to be on board with helping that to a reasonable extent. If we get too far, they'll want us to start paying them. But
Does anyone have any questions about the current, well, the update from the library building committee? So it's kind of, yep, just putting efforts on being prepared for the possibility of another presentation and what should be included in that, and the best information that we can gather from our first presentation at town meeting. Okay. So underneath that, plans to do, so does anyone have any thoughts on that? We have a discussion / vote, and I guess that would fall under, we do have the option as trustees to ask the select board to bring it back. Now, under that scenario, it would be a request to the select board to consider it, and that would be up to them to consider a motion to bring back at a different town meeting the project. The citizens petition, just for clarification, that is not a request for the select board, it's not a consideration to the select board. If they are successful in their petition and they acquire the 200 votes, the select board's required to bring it back within 45 days. I just wanted to make that clarification. So.
yeah, and I should say something I hadn't realized, that the citizens petition rule for 200, you need 200 signatures. That's driven by a state law. It's not.
Yeah, I didn't realize that either. Somehow I thought that was
Yeah.
a Westborough thing, but that was great clarification.
Yeah. So if there is a petition with 200 approved signatures, there is going to be a meeting. The select board will have to schedule it, but they're required to do that.
Is there any advantage for the trustees to make that request, or would that be seen as, what was the phrase I kept hearing, the second bite of the apple? And should we leave it to the citizens' democracy to bring it?
Yeah, so I guess that's the discussion at hand on how people feel about that. That is a lot of the feedback is, does it open a set of bad precedents for other town departments that if they don't get the vote that they want? That's the discussion on the floor. So.
And
Go ahead, Kate, sorry.
no, go ahead, Karen. I'd rather hear what you have
I
to
think
say.
the only viable or feasible or recommended way that the trustees would make the recommendation, if we had tangible results or money or in hand, like not in the future we're expecting, we would not have to, but it is recommended that we would present and again, we can't touch this is what it's going to cost, because that would affect our grant. So it would have to be we received ARPA funds, not, and personally, I don't think that's a tangible reality right now that we are going to get funds in the time allotted that we need. I mean, I would pray that we would. I hope that it does come to fruition, but my recommendation would be to have the citizen petition initiated and go that route, because I don't think at this point that we have a plan B.
Anyone consider, and I know this was discussed ad nauseum before, the fact that, and some people raised this question at the building committee meeting last week, that people felt the timing of the meeting and the vote was very difficult for people who have children who might have supported the vote, but it came, not only was it a school night, but the vote came after childcare was dismissed at the town meeting. So people who might have been voting in favor couldn't be there because they had small children they had to pick up and take home. Is that a reason? We could say, look, the late time, lack of childcare, this was an issue in the results of the vote, or is that not valid?
It's a great question. I don't know if it's not valid. I don't know if it would change the circumstances enough. I think the information that, I don't want to say like etiquette around it, but that like town history says, unless there is a huge circumstance. And I get that totally. The passionate project side of me feels like I want to do everything I can for the library to push that forward. In wanting to keep our role as the trustees in like a positive light and frame for the library, I don't want to cast negative light on the library. I wonder if a more appropriate action would be, like, I honestly don't think if we ask them to consider it that they would. I think they've been very clear. Most of the selectmen have been very clear. There would need to be huge circumstance changes to even consider it. So I wonder if a more appropriate route would be to us to write a letter to them or a memo sharing the feedback that we've heard. So as a library, we've heard lots of feedback from people who are really upset about how it went and for the various reasons. Another avenue that I've heard that people were frustrated with was that there was a lot of the senior population that it was a bad night, the weather was terrible, it was late at night, and they couldn't come. And so perhaps our best bet is to be the voice of our patrons, is to put all that feedback that we've gotten into a memo to share with them from one board to another. This is the feedback we've gotten about town meeting. It's not asking them to do anything about this vote particularly, because I think the best citizens' voice forward would be a citizen's petition. But I think we've heard a lot from our patrons, and as the trustees who represent the patrons who elected us, I think it would behoove us to share that information with town hall.
So
Karen,
it would be a
Karen,
sharing
your hand up.
information, not a request.
That would be one avenue. to
That
take.
makes sense.
Karen,
Because-
So I'm gonna agree with Karen.
Carolyn,
I had my hand up and Mary.
Oh, hold on one second. I have another
thank you.
speaker.
I thought
Okay,
you
go
called-
ahead, Carolyn.
So what I was gonna say is I agree in that we should leave this to the citizens petition. I will tell you that it was a lousy night weather-wise for people for and against. And again, the childcare issue is balanced with the seniors not being able to get out and drive in that weather as well. So I think letting the citizens petition is the best route to go. I personally, I do not sign anything. I am a stickler for democracy and protocol, so let the citizens petition go forward. That is their right. but as a trustee, we represent everybody for and against the project, not just for the project. And I think we are doing a slippery slope walk if we take a stand with the selectmen and request another meeting. I think it's gonna set a bad precedent. There's not any, there's no new money, there's no new substantive, can't think of the right word right now. But there's nothing new that we have to present, which would substantially change what the presentation was at this point in time.
Right.
And
back to
because
the
of that, we should not be taking a stand, because again, it's like every other board who isn't happy with what the vote is, oh, we'll just do another, vote. And that's just not how it works. I've been in town over 35 years. I know some of you have been here longer, but there's never been a special town meeting called when people weren't happy about the vote. Things have been brought back at later meetings because there has been a change in circumstances. Like if we knew, like next week, we got the ARPA funds, awesome, absolutely. But we don't know that. And so I think we're not on good footing and good ground by, as trustees, requesting it. That's my opinion. Everybody's entitled to their opinion, but that's mine.
Any other thoughts? Thank you, Carol.
I want to back up what's been said. Having listened to some select board members and the moderator, even if we did ask them, they would not, I'm pretty confident they would not vote in favor. And it would set a bad precedent. Just at a personal level, I don't want to go down be marked down as being an election denier, which is what this would sort of amount to. So.
So this is Eyal. I'm an outsider. I know a bunch of people on the committee, and I would like to take a minute of your time, please. My neighbor is Shelby, and I went on a brainstorming session with her, and basically we went back and forth, and the way we went is this: if we went back to the builder and we said the following: on a smaller footprint, on a building with the doors that do not slide, because some people were worried about who's going to monitor the kids, like a half day when you have the Gibbons kids show up and there is an access and a sliding door on the top. And if we went back to the builder and we asked for a building without the sliding doors and with a smaller footprint and without the porching all around, the porches all around, there could be a 5 million, there could be a up to 20% reduction in the price and in the upkeep future of the library. And if the builder could do a quick turnaround for that, so it could still grab that fund from the state, then the impact on the citizens would drop more than just the 20% of the total cost of the library. Some of the neighbors were concerned about these porches and the access and the kids, basically thinking about the target audience. Those sliding doors are not as important if you look at other libraries. And so if we had a smaller budget, we could still bring it again to a vote rather quickly. The question is how much the contractor or the architect or the guys that you're in touch with could turn around with a smaller proposal. Because the vote was very close. The vote was extremely close to get 2/3.
It was.
Can I address that?
Yeah, we have some clarification on that. Go ahead, Ed.
Yeah. So the project team actually considered that idea on their own initiative, which is to say they made an estimate of how much square footage and functionality and other cost drivers they could take out of the project while still maintaining the grant still qualifying for the grant for the MBLC. And we actually talked about that in this afternoon's meeting earlier. I didn't bring it up, but they've estimated something like $1.5 million in savings by cutting out things like the exterior children's porch and the downstairs porch and things like that. It would cut the square footage of the library a little bit by about 1,000 square feet, if I remember the numbers correctly. Their feeling was that if they did more than that, the MBLC we would not continue to qualify for the MBLC grant, and that would be $9 million. We are actually looking into that. The plan is to get in touch with the MBLC and get their thoughts on the matter. But it's not, they said, and I personally believe, there's not a way to get $5 or $6 million out of there while maintaining our qualifications for that grant.
So just to add on to that, I just want to be really clear about that. With the grant guidelines, when you apply for a grant and you meet certain programming areas in which you need, that's what our library went forward based on our needs assessment to say, this is what we need for the Westborough Public Library. And they accepted that application and they awarded us the grant based on those parameters. And there's only so much of those parameters that we can change. I'm not sure if you were on the call a little bit earlier when Ed said the library building committee at this point is kind of put a little bit of a hold on making plans for the next phase until we find out what happens with the citizens petition and if a revote happens. Because if that doesn't happen, then what you're suggesting is exactly what is going to happen is we're going to have to relook at everything and see on a smaller budget, what can we do? And then come back for that for town meeting. Our experts on our building team definitely don't feel as if looking at the parameters of the grants, we would be able to scale the project. We can scale the project back a bit, but not enough to, one, make an impact on the budget enough for a vote, and two, to hold on to our grant if we do. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Well, thank you for sharing. Okay, I see Deborah, you have your hand up.
I just wanted to say that I agree with Carolyn that we're here to represent everyone, you know, in terms of all voters. If we want to acknowledge barriers to voting, it's barriers to voting for all voters, not just those in favor of the library project, but those in favor or against. It's important to.
I like that term, barriers to voting.
Yep, barriers to voting.
Kate, I also see your hand up.
Sure.
I was going to say, I tend to agree that it's within our purview, I think, to say to explain to the Board of Selectmen that some of our voters, our supporters, felt they were unable to vote or were unable to be there. Even some of our opponents were unable to be there because of the weather, and that it would be fair and responsible of us to say, this is the feedback we got, as you suggested, Mary. I think that's a great idea.
Carolyn, I see your hand up as well.
I never lowered it. I'm sorry.
Okay, that's fine.
There we go.
Oh, Julia, go right.
I can't figure out where the button is to raise my hand. So I'm Julia Rissmiller, and like I said, Hope Walsh is also on this call, and Brittany Jacobs. And so we're interested in creating the petition and getting signatures. And I just wanted to let you know that our focus, we had a meeting, is really going to be about like getting out the vote, but not telling people which way to vote. So it's really to address the fact that we feel that a lot of people were excluded from the vote because of the circumstances, the time. It was a weeknight, it was very late. You know, people with kids, without kids, people with jobs and stuff. So we're not here to like persuade people. We're just here to get signatures and encourage people to attend and inform themselves and vote.
That's fantastic. Thank you very much. It's something I said to a lot of people when I did my presentations ahead of time. Like, I will present you with information. I will never tell you how to vote, but I will beg you to come and vote one way or another, because it's so important. So thank you so much for taking that charge. We really appreciate it. Bill, did you have your hand up, or was that a clapping hand? It went away.
No, just Julie, and also back to Kate, just take into account that we had a long, meeting with the selectmen, and the discussion was when to have the presentation, which went from number 19 to number 15. So we have to be careful that we don't use words that they can come back and say, there was a long discussion about that. We gave you what you asked for. I'm not telling you what to do, but just keep that in mind, that those are things that have already been discussed, and we don't want to trip over that.
I agree, and I've thought about that because, as you well know, I was pretty vocal on them moving our thing up. But when I sit back and I look at the votes that happened after ours in position of what, if the library wasn't there, we would have come up Monday night either way, because the three after us were like no discussion. So I was like, felt a little bit better about that, because then I was like, oh, darn it, should have been Tuesday night. But either way, I really do firmly believe it would have come up Monday, because those votes after us moved pretty quickly. So
Just an awareness comment, that's all.
yep, absolutely.
I think it would have been even later at night.
Agreed.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that I don't envy people having to try to plan out the anticipation of the order. Like, that's difficult. It's a difficult decision. Everything is important on that ballot and warrant. So go ahead, Kate. I see your hand up again.
Oh, I just, in response to what Bill said, he's absolutely right. You guys successfully moved it up the agenda. However, we're not saying it should have been earlier. We're saying this is the feedback we have gotten.
Right.
Which I think is different than saying you screwed up, but should have been earlier. We're saying people are telling us it was too late for them because they're small children or because of the weather was bad. And I think that's acceptable. We're just funneling the information through.
When I feel, I also feel like
One more, can I please say one more thing?
Go ahead, Ayel.
The items that came before the vote riled up a little bit the people sitting around me. The Forbes building that was just rebuilt needed maintenance for the elevator, and later we were going to talk about Hastings that were just rebuilt and needed HVAC. And then there was this big ticket item for the library, and already when the presentation came up, it wasn't 36, because by the time we were done paying the loan, it'll be 40. The drafty doors on the top floor, that there's going to create a space that's not really. So what I think is, even if you shave the 1.5 million from this by making it slightly smaller, what you're trying to get, let's say the same audience will be voting there that voted the first time, you only need 15 votes. So do the small change to get those extra votes and bring this together with this. When the citizens petition is, also the library can say, so there was a hidden cost of, if the top floor is open and there's kids there need to be another librarian supervising the door, or the door will end up just always locked because you don't have another person. So I do think that if the budget changes by slightly that much, you could get that extra slightly, that many more people to vote. And assuming it's the same crowd that will come, then just that extra thing could potentially make the difference.
Good.
Someone spoke that was from the church. They probably don't want a bunch of people standing on the porch when they're going in and out of worship. One of the guys in another committee was a neighbor. They probably do not want a porch. Imagine the porch is there, the Gibbons kids throw empty water bottles off the porch. The town gets together and said, we lock the doors if there's no librarian. You're just trying. There was a clear majority for this decision to go through, but there wasn't a 2/3. So if the builder could turn around and say, we're rethinking and we're coming towards you, and this is what we're looking at, while keeping the budget almost where it was before, but showing the church people next door and the town people that live next door that you consider their feelings, that factor could really bring back, there was like 7 people needed to vote the other way.
Right.
So I think that that is something that can move in parallel, and it wouldn't hurt our chances to get the library built.
Thank you for sharing. Ed, I saw your hand go up to that.
Kate has been up for a while, but I can talk if you wish.
Go ahead. I didn't see, wait, I lost Kate. Is she still here? Oh, you're down the bottom.
Still
Sorry.
here. I forgot to take my hand down. That was all.
Oh,
So
okay.
go for it, Ed.
Well,
Okay.
Ed, Carolyn, and then
I don't want to get into the details of the design. I do want to suggest that we, the trustees, meet before the next town meeting, should it occur, and vote on whether to support the original proposal or some reduced price proposal, you know, whatever comes out of our design team and discussions with the MBLC and so on.
and we will have that in, like, because the library building committee meets again before the next trustee meeting.
Our plan is to meet next Tuesday.
Right. Okay, great. Carolyn.
So I just want to go back to Eyal's comments. So I appreciate that you're thinking of ways to accommodate the neighbors, because that's important. It was Suzanne Arpante who spoke, one of the people who spoke from the church, who voted no, because she said, I'm voting no. And her issue wasn't just the kids hanging out. Her issue was the impact to the church itself with the whole project. So that's not going to really change. It's going to help without the porches, but that's not going to change as much. And I know it's like maybe 7 to 15 votes. The number isn't clear that it failed by. But you have to remember, even if you get those people, you're going to get other people from the other side coming who didn't come out because of the weather. So, you know, you can't just plan on that getting 7 more people in favor, because you're going to get people from the other side too. So you need to realize that in asking for another town meeting, you really don't know who you're going to get in your audience. It's going to be probably more people from both sides, and you're not going to know till that night who's going to be there. So you need to keep that in mind as well. I don't mean to be negative, and certainly a citizen's petition, Julia, go for it. You know, it's pure democracy. That's why we have these laws, and that's great. But I'm just saying you need to be aware that it's not just more people in support. You're probably going to get more people against as well. So you need to realize that. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Hope, you had your hand up.
Hi. Hi. Just a quick question on if the citizens petition goes through. I know the select board has up to 45 days to schedule the special town meeting, but do you know what they, like, could they schedule it in a week, or like, do you have any idea of how that?
They need 2 weeks, right?
Yeah, there has to be 14 days notice, so they would have to create the warrant, approve the warrant no earlier than 14 days before whatever day they choose to schedule it.
Okay. And then, so 14 days, and then they'd have to make the public aware of it within that time.
No, they have to, the actual closing of the warrant and the announcement of it can't be less than 14 days before the date they choose. So for instance, if they met tonight and voted on a warrant for a special town meeting, the soonest it could be would be 2 weeks from tonight.
Oh, okay.
And they have up to 45 days, but they can do it whenever they have a meeting and do it. They don't have to wait the 45 days. So, but obviously trying to coordinate this with the select board through the town manager's office to find out when they're meeting and things like that would be beneficial to the cause, to your cause, I believe.
Okay, thank you.
Maureen?
So a couple things. Just to inform everybody, I do know that the select board is meeting November 2nd and November 22nd. Those are their next 2 meetings. So that may be helpful as the petition is getting started. If it could be done quickly, I don't know if it could be done in time for the meeting on the 2nd, but hopefully by the one on the 22nd. And I think, John, you can address this because I think we talked about it at the other meeting. The people bringing the petition forward can propose a date and time and location. It's up to the select board to decide if they want to accept that recommendation or schedule it at a different time, but they can. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's nothing in the law that says whether they can or can't, but certainly if citizens are going to request the calling of a special town meeting, they can certainly try to make a case for when they would want it to be, although the decision rests with the select board. But there's nothing that says they can or can't. It would be separate from the actual petition. That a time, date, place probably shouldn't be on the petition, but certainly the components of it could socialize, the idea of when they think would be the best time to have it. And I'm assuming that part of the select board discussions, once they got the petition, would be for them to have discussions, and they would have to have that in an open meeting, and people could make it aware that they would like to speak on behalf of particular ideas.
Thank you. And then I just wanted to address two other of Aisle's comments. If I can take just a quick second, Mary.
Yeah, sure.
The porches that we're talking about are actually on the opposite side of the building from the church. So they're actually facing the police station. And I wanted to, because this is a recorded meeting and it's going to be out there for the public, I wanted to just clarify that the porches are not accessible or even viewable from the property in the back. But they do face the police station. So that's kind of a deterrent for anybody to get up to any kind of shenanigans.
Good point.
The other item, again, because it's a public meeting, the number that was put out for this project is the 36.9 million. There have been all kinds of other numbers that were floated out there. There was a 40, there was a 50. The actual cost of the project as presented at town meeting is $36.9 million. And that's what we were asking the town to approve. And that would be the amount that would be authorized for borrowing. So I just wanted to clarify that point so that the correct information was out there.
Maureen, can you address what happened in Grafton's case, how they voted it down, and how were they able to turn around and get it voted in?
Grafton actually voted their project down, I think 3 times over the years. And it was the scenario that we do not want to happen in our case, which was the town voted it down, and they ended up waiting and going back for a future grant round and applying. They were awarded a grant again. They took it to, I don't know if it was town meeting or the ballot, because some of it was before my time, but they actually voted it down and returned the funds to NBLC. So it wasn't anything, they didn't do anything special. They just eventually tweaked their design, and they were able to, I believe they were able to acquire some land that was adjacent to the library property that they didn't own, or the town didn't own prior, and were able to purchase that and build the project finally. So they—
Okay, thank you. So it was basically 2 different grant rounds or 3 different grant rounds.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I just also, Maureen, you brought up a good point about just setting the record straight, being in a public meeting. I just wanted to address that open aired space on the children's space. I think there is this thought that it is like, oh, it's open to the air, but not opened, like you can't stick your hand out there. I would like people to think of it more like and it's all at this stage in 15% of the design. So lots of changes can happen in that, but it's not like a balcony you'd have in your own house that would be open. Children wouldn't be able to throw anything out and down from the second floor. That would be an enclosed, whether it was a screen or netting or something, but like nobody would be able to throw things from the second floor out and down. I think that's part of this schematic design that's a little bit challenging for people in town to understand, and rightfully so. I get it. Like, I've been in many meetings about this, so now I understand that it's a design concept and there'd be a lot of decisions to make after and further tweaking to happen in the process. But that's just a suggested use of that space. But I just wanted to make sure that that was clarified. Otherwise, I'd have a lot of concerns. So, all right. So focus back on, sorry, I'm looking through, there's my agenda. So I think we've had this discussion about moving forward from here. So I guess I would make I guess we would need to vote on it if we wanted to share information with the select board. So I'm going to make a motion that we as trustees share the feedback that we've gotten from our patrons about their barriers to voting with the select board and town officials so that they can do what they want with that information.
I actually, I guess I'd like to know what exactly that feedback would be. You know,
Sure.
I guess I'm comfortable with that idea, but it also depends on what exactly that says and how it's said. So does that make sense? Like, I'm comfortable.
No, absolutely. Ed, you had a question?
Can we write it and then vote on the finished letter?
Yes, that's what I'd prefer to do.
Yes, that's fine. So I'll withdraw that motion. Hold on.
I will say, I think the sense of the committee is that, of the trustees, is that we should write it and look at it and vote on it.
Hold on one second. Okay, so
has anyone been capturing? I'm just wondering how.
I know, I'm trying to think that through, like how to move that forward.
Without, we want to be cautious about scraping things from Facebook, you know, unless it's.
I know, I think it needs to be direct feedback.
It needs to be direct feedback. So I don't know what form that we have, if any, that we've been presented feedback.
So we shouldn't be doing it if we don't have the feedback.
So the feedback is there. I mean, like whether it's text, emails, phone calls, conversations we have as representatives of the public, people come to you. They don't, regardless of if you're a town hall employee or you're on the DPW or you're a library trustee, as an elected town official, somebody's going to share their information. They feel like they've shared it with the town, right? And so I take that feedback and we pass it along to the appropriate people that need to hear it. See some hands. Kate.
I was going to say, I know we have feedback that came at the meeting, the building committee meeting.
Right.
There have been emails. There's information that has been presented to us other than Facebook and tweets and whatever other social media, and that's and personal commentary. And I think we can do that fairly and just say, FYI, here's what we've heard.
Yep. Carolyn.
I'm gonna agree with Deb. You know, I think because the feedback is going to be from people who said the childcare wasn't there and all that, who wanted to vote in favor, which is all well and good. We're gonna come off as being biased and not representing everybody, and that is my concern. We represent everybody, not just people in favor of the project, and we need to remember that.
Yep.
We were elected by the town and not just people in favor of a new library. And that's what my concern is with this.
Framing the point of barriers to vote doesn't say whether this is information. I've heard information on both sides. It's the same barriers for them voting of whether or not it was 2 or 4 or against. And like I've mentioned earlier, it's not about us saying it's not fair because we lost and this is why, but these are opinions that patrons have voiced one way or another. I've heard both sides of it. I've had almost don't want to walk out in town right now because everywhere I go, I'm like, no, I just want to watch the football game, but that's okay too. But it's all information, and it is not biased one way or another to say that people feel they couldn't come because of childcare, because of the lateness of the event, or because if it was a work night. None of those say that it was for or against either position and that it was unfair, but we're hearing from patrons on both sides that they feel their voice wasn't able to be heard.
I get that. I just don't think we should do it, but that's me.
Can I add something? Sorry, I can't find my hand anywhere. I will be willing to if people want to send me any feedback, good, bad, negative, or whatever, and write something up and I can present it to the board at our next meeting.
Let's do that, and then we'll take a vote whether or not we should send it.
Perfect. Okay.
Ed, go ahead.
It occurs to me that we can and maybe should not send the feedback off until after the library issue has been resolved one way or other. And that'll at least reduce any concerns about bias, because it's going to be a while before anything comes up again. And I do think that the selectmen will probably be considering the whole situation around this town meeting and the turmoil, and it wouldn't hurt to give them our information as well.
Yep, the timing of the letter is also a discussion point for sure.
Perfect.
Deb?
Do we know if people have provided feedback directly to the select board? I just don't know.
They have, yes.
Okay.
I know that because any of the emails that have come, not any of them, some of them, Christy responded. Christy Williams, town manager, is copied on all of the group emails that go to the select board. So if someone emailed select board at town, etc., she gets a copy of it, and she CC'd me on her responses to the residents who sent her feedback. So I can certainly share those.
And this was feedback specifically about barriers to voting?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so, yep. Why don't we take that action there? If you feel that you have feedback to share, send it to Karen directly. Be cognizant of discussions offline, so email Karen directly. She can compile something and then present it at a future select board meeting and trustee meeting, and then we can see what we want to do with it or not at a future time. But as this is a hot topic in town, I feel strongly that we are elected officials on behalf of our patrons to speak their voice. I strongly feel no matter what issue, if we had a ton of patrons coming into the library complaining about the sidewalks, we would bring their voices forward. If they were complaining about parking, we have historically brought their voices forward. That's why they come to us. We are their representatives. I feel like we have an obligation to do something with the information that they share with us without bias. Deb, did you have something else to add, or is your hand still up? Thanks. All the things we didn't miss about Zoom meeting. Okay. Does anyone feel like they have anything else they want to add to the discussion about the library building committee and special town meetings?
The only thing is, yes, compile a laundry list of it, but let's be very selective and only present a few. We don't want to send something 2 to 20 pages. We want a select few bullets if we're going to share with the selectmen. Otherwise, it just muddies the water, like some people have said. I think we should share something along like you said, but make it crisp.
Okay, thank you. And as always, nothing will move forward unless it's approved by everybody, obviously. Okay, that brings us to our actually, before we move on, I just wanted to say on that obviously this is a very passionate discussion. We're all here because we care about the library. And I just wanted to say thank you to all of our members of the public that are here tonight, because you obviously have come forward because you care about the library as we do. And we really appreciate your participation and caring about the library in such a way that you would take actions. We appreciate you being here for all of that. Next goes to our trustee director business report.
I did not send a written director's report this month because
Didn't have time, Maureen?
I think you all knew what I was up to. However, I will make sure that there's something written for the next one. What I do want to just say is this last week has been really difficult for staff, and the outpouring of care and concern for staff from our patrons has been so heartwarming, and it has meant so much to all of us. The day after the vote, we had flowers delivered, we had brownies, we had cards and notes and emails, and it just it helped so much, because that was probably the hardest thing that any of us have had to deal with professionally or personally. And so for anyone from the public who is here or watching it afterward, I just know how much that meant to everybody.
We live in a pretty awesome place. Thank you. Anything else? Oh, you have the haunted library this weekend.
Yes, we do. Haunted Library is this weekend, and it's so great to have it back. The kids are excited. Jen is excited. It's going to be another fantastic event.
Thanks for giving my son and his friends something to do with that in it. I appreciate that. They are very much looking forward to it. I'm assuming you're all set with volunteers for that.
I'm pretty sure we are. I know Jen would have spoken up, but I'll check with her tomorrow and just double check. And if she needs help, I'll put out a call ASAP.
Okay, that's great. Hold on one second. Okay, sorry, my daughter's not feeling well. I was like, wait, don't go to bed yet. Okay. Agenda items.
I have one
Yep,
thing.
sorry, I didn't see your hand. Go ahead, Ed.
I just want to thank you and Maureen in particular for the vast amount of public speaking and organizing stuff you've done in the build up to the meeting and so on. You've gotten a lot of emails, I think, including one from me. And I just want to back that up in quote person. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Agenda I'll second that as well. Masterful job with all the speaking and presentations you both have done, all the presentations, and certainly a town meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Great.
Agenda items for next month's meeting. Karen's going to work on compiling patrons' thoughts.
We'll need to vote on
Yep.
the potential reduced cost version.
Okay.
And that may require scheduling an early meeting depending on when the town meeting occurs, assuming that it does occur.
Right. And let's just also, because we'll also keep aware, what's Thanksgiving in there? Just want to check the date of our next meeting. Do we have it scheduled for the 23rd, the day before Thanksgiving? Do we really have that? I feel like we would have looked at the calendar.
We totally would have.
So we put it to the 16th or the 30th?
I think Maureen had some exceptions there for that.
Right? Like, I feel like we talked about this. We'll look it up. I'll look it up today and I'll send out a reminder for when our next meeting is. Because I feel like we wouldn't have when we made the calendar, would not have made it for the 23rd, but
Yeah, for sure.
crazier things have happened. We'll see. I will send out that reminder, so just so that we all have it for holiday wise, what's on our schedule. Anything else before we?
Just a thought, why don't you check the Christmas date as well, or the December date as well when you're doing that? 'Cause-
December 21st.
Okay,
The 28th would be the 4th Wednesday, so I think we're okay on that one. Yeah, okay. We're gonna do some research on that, no problem. Anything else? Then I'll take
Yeah,
a motion to adjourn. I'm sorry, Bill, go ahead.
Yeah, the enhancement to the organizational chart are great. Thank you for doing that.
Yes, that looks snazzy.
Thank you to Lynn for helping with that. Because I was kind of underwater.
No, that was great, and I think that really helps frame the visual organization. Thank you very much. Good job, Lynn. Okay. No other
Thank you.
business? John Arnold, thank you so much for taking your time tonight to be with us. We appreciate that.
You're welcome.
I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I so move.
Somebody
Second.
second that? Was that you, Karen?
Yes.
Okay, we'll go down the
I'm
order.
sorry. Who seconded that?
Karen.
Thank you.
Okay, Deborah,
Yes.
Kate,
Yes.
Bill,
Lenine, yes.
Ed,
Baldwin, yes.
Jim,
Holmes, yes.
Karen,
Yes.
Dot,
Yes.
Carolyn,
Yes.
and myself, Johnson's yes. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Have a good night.
Bye.
Bye.